wind and solar, electric vehicles, they have their role. We're not an electron company, we're a molecule company, so we don't have a direct role to play, but we're supportive of it, but it's not a solution that was going to address all the problems. And there are solutions out there today where you can begin to decarbonize what you already have, do it at a much lower cost, do it much faster, and get a much bigger impact. And we just need to change the policy and start moving in that direction rather than the kind of the bet that we've placed now that electrification is going to solve every aspect of our economic emissions, which is not true.
So I propose we continue the conversation with the people in the room, and some of them have been working also in the energy sector. I will start here on this side. I think Janet, and please introduce yourself.
I'm Janet Lampkin, and I'm a trustee for the German Marshall Fund, and thank you so much again for being here with us.
Sure.
And congratulations for that tenure here in Europe. That's extremely impressive, so thank you for that as well. I want to ask you an interesting, as I listened to you speak, I wanted to change this slightly. With the emergence of AI and the quick adoption, and especially for industries that are in energy requirement, like logistics, manufacturing, how are you thinking about your industry and your company meeting the needs of those industries, both here in Europe, which now sounds quite challenging given the infrastructure and some of the regulatory environments? Do you think that could be a wake-up call for the environment here? And then even in the US as well, because there is such a...
They address how do they support it, and available energy is a critical component of it. And today, I don't think there's any place that exists today where you have the infrastructure and the existing capacity to meet the needs of this new technology. And so it's going to require growth. And the question, I think, facing every economy is how, and certainly in the U.S., is how do you support that growth, enable the development of AI, which I think, rightly so, people are seeing as an incredibly important competitive dynamic as well as a national security dynamic. And so there's a lot of aspects which lead, I think, every country to think hard about developing that capability and maintaining some level of competitiveness around the world in those different spaces. We, as a company, we're a very big producer. In fact, we're the largest U.S. producer of oil and gas. And most of it's coming out of the Permian Basin, so unconventional oil that many of you, I'm sure, have heard about. We made a commitment several years ago to take the production of our Permian fields to net zero for Scope 1 and Scope 2, for those of you who are familiar, for the emissions that we generate and the emissions that we cause to be generated in supporting our business. We're going to take that to net zero. So we are developing decarbonized natural gas from a production development standpoint. We also have invested in the world's only large-scale end-to-end carbon capture, storage, and transportation system. So there's no other company in the world that has the ability to capture, transport, and store CO2 at the scale that we do in the Gulf Coast of the U.S. So we have a decarbonized natural gas, and we have a system for capturing emissions and transporting and storing them. And we are taking the combination of those two things and offering opportunities for the technology companies to build data centers in the Gulf Coast of the U.S. to take advantage of these endowments to basically have virtually decarbonized low-carbon data centers. And a lot of interest in doing that. And so I think, there's an opportunity there. The real question is how committed are they to the emissions reductions and whether they're willing to pay for that. And we're today in these commercial discussions about that. So I think, nuclear is talked about. I think the time frame from bringing nuclear on to power these is a lot further out than people are thinking. So today, I think the only real option around the world is natural gas, the lowest emissions associated with the options, and then the ability to, in the right location, capture the emissions associated with that power generation and store it to decarbonize it, I think is what we're going to see happen here in the short term. Hopefully we see that happen.
Thank you. I have another question over here. Gunnar Wiegand, could we have the microphone, please? Thank you. And please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. Gunnar Wiegand from GMF as well in Brussels, however, and formerly EU official dealing with Asia Pacific. Thank you for your very sober and concrete remarks, visibly impacted by EU regulatory approaches to green transition. I wanted to nevertheless ask you two questions. The first is do you consider the possibility of entering into waste-based, recycled waste-based energy production, which is something which is coming up in Europe definitely, and maybe one of the longer-term answers to the challenges we are facing is, of course, not a traditional area of activity of your company. Secondly, when Alexander said that geopolitics comes to you, well, we saw, of course, the previous CEO of Exxon called Rex Tillerson, to whom geopolitics came in a very direct way. I don't know whether the same thing is awaiting you.
No. I can answer that question quickly. Okay. You could probably tell from our remarks up here I'm not a good politician.
But I wanted to ask you, your company made a major investment in China, in particular in Huizhou, in Guangdong province, a major petrochemical complex in 21. And do you consider that this investment and further investments in China will be welcomed by the new administration in Washington, D.C.? Thank you.
Sure. So on the first question around using waste as an energy source, first of all, what I would say is the way we think about our business and where we make investments, they're all anchored in what our core competitive advantages are. So maybe despite what some might think in terms of how we define our business, I do not think of us as an energy company. I think of us as a technology company that transforms hydrogen and carbon molecules. And if you look at the products that we're making today, like I said, many of them are going into applications that are not combusted. My view is with time, there will be more and more products that we make out of hydrogen and carbon molecules that go into everyday life that help lower emissions and bring greater value to society. And so with time, my expectation is that piece of the business grows greater and greater. And I'll give you two examples just very quickly to illustrate the point. We recognize that gasoline molecules are going along in the world, and what can we do with gasoline molecules? We have developed a proprietary technology that converts those into resins, and we can now make rebar out of gasoline molecules. And we can make, when improves the game changer. Again, that's a new product that we're offering and introducing. And so that's the way I think about the company and where I see us taking our capabilities and moving forward. So it's got to be consistent with what our inherent core advantages, core competitive advantages are. The other key criteria is that it has to work at scale. The size of our company means the opportunities that we pursue have to be large. If they're small, they won't merit the focus and the intention within our company. And so we got to have the ability to scale. And then it has to be affordable. So when you look at the alternatives that are out there, do those opportunities provide an advantage that people are willing to pay for, or are they lower priced for their alternatives? And if we can't find if the investment opportunity doesn't meet those criteria, and then when we invest, we have to do it better than anybody else. So my expectation is we'll develop these products at a lower cost than our competition. And if we can't meet those four criteria, then we don't invest. So that's kind of how we think about it. So in the area that you're talking about, I don't see that. It hasn't got on the radar yet as an opportunity that would meet those criteria. But when it comes to waste and dealing with waste, one of the areas where we have found, I think, a really unique opportunity is recycled plastic. And to basically, we have a big challenge around the world with managing plastic waste. And how can we help address that? And so we have used our existing facilities and a technology that actually recycles plastic and breaks it back down to the molecular level so that we can reuse that with all the same properties and qualities of virgin plastic. So huge benefit, and we can mix all types of plastic. So we are investing quite aggressively and advanced recycling of plastics, which meets our criteria and has a very good return. So that's how we think about it, but that's the general approach. And then your second question, I got distracted with, pardon? China. Yeah, so first of all, what we looked at what we're doing, and China is a big market for the products that go into societal applications, think diapers, medical gowns, masks, things like that. And so the application of the things that we're making in China go into everyday living, don't represent what I would say are strategic national concern, security type concerns. And so unlike some of the things you've seen in the press about chips and things that I think the government worries about providing strategic advantage to, I don't think the U.S. government's worried about diapers in China. So I think we're sticking in markets where it's consumer goods that they don't have a real concern. And our intent, China is a big market for many producers around the world. The intent here was to take advantage of the Chinese workforce and be in the country. We like to, where we have big markets and are supplying products, we like to be in those countries. And so it was a broader strategic drive and a long-term play. I do not anticipate that being a real issue because of the sectors that we're participating in.
Thank you, Darren. We're reaching the end of this conversation, but obviously a lot to follow up. Thank you very much. And we're going to build on this conversation and turn to the next session. We're going to dive into economics, American economics, trade wars, tariffs, with Joyce Chang, who will be moderating this conversation. So Joyce, I'm very happy to have you join the session here. And Darren, thank you again very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And
Glad
see
to
you
be
very
here.
soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.